Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Welcome to this very special mini symposium today about residue analysis. Bienvenido a la gente que está participando desde Perú. Bienvenidos. Un cordial saludo desde Holanda. Today we are presenting from the Netherlands. We have a very special mini symposium for you today about residue analysis. An introduction. Most people active in fruit and vegetables have to deal one way or the other at some point with residue analysis, and today we're going to give you a very broad introduction about residue analysis and how you can deal with them in fresh produce. As you can see, I'm already indicating in the first slide that if you have any questions, please put them on an email and send them to Michelle Whitmer, who will be presenting later this mini symposium. The reason for that is that usually when people have questions about residue analysis, they tend to be very specific questions, questions about specific products, questions about specific origins, questions about specific chemicals or pesticides. So rather than trying to answer some of those questions during the mini symposium, which we would normally do in this specific case, please direct your questions by email to Michelle, and he will be I'll come back to you with the precise answers to the questions. Now, for those of you that don't know us, Groen Agro Control and Norman Food Care, we are a Dutch company very active in the typical challenges that the fresh produce industry has. I'm just going to give you a few examples here. Things like, can we get better taste in tomatoes or in strawberries? If you talk about blueberries, for instance, they tend to be too soft. How can you control that? Things like ready to eat in avocados or mangoes, and also, the very broad subject of food safety. Is a product safe to eat? And that's really what we will be talking about today with regard to residue analysis. Now, we provide as a company quality solutions for the fresh produce world. Just a brief summary here. We're monitoring quality in supermarkets. We provide quality inspectors and quality managers. We have a big department that is focusing on training and education in quality of fresh produce. Quality assurance issues that you might have. We have consumer panels. And also the subject of today, we have laboratories where we do residue and chemical analysis. Now, our locations, we're in different parts of the world. Mostly the Netherlands and Belgium. We also have a lab in Germany, in Sweden, and Groen Agro Control has a lab in Peru. And in addition to that, we have a global network of agents that we also work very closely with, which gives us the opportunity to also support you if you're in Mexico, in Colombia, Ecuador, or pretty much anywhere else in the world. Now, talking a bit more, before we go into the full details of residue analysis, talk a bit more about those laboratories. If you look at the company like Groen Agro Control, we particularly focus on two parts in the analysis arena. One is microbiological analysis, so anything related to common bacteria, spoilage, but also things like pathogens, Salmonella, Listeria, and anything that you would like to have tested in water, soil, product, or in the air. And at the same time, if you're talking about diseases that you might experience in the field or in the supply chain, we do disease diagnostics. Microbiological research, specifically in production areas, things like swabs and air sampling, and then anything related to cleaning, disinfection, or hygiene advice. So anything that helps you to keep good standards in your supplies and in your production sites. And last but not least, on this side, things like calamities, things that might occur in your business or in your industry where you might need help. We're also supporting that with our laboratories. Now, that's on the microbiological side. On the chemical side, there's a number of things we do. The big subject of today, residue analysis, residues of pesticides, but then also analysis of, for instance, ethanol, chlorate, things like heavy metals, mycotoxins, or nutritional values, vitamins, acrylamide or histamine. So a whole series of chemical analysis that will help you either identify if you're complying with the law, if you're complying with food safety regulations, or if you're complying, as you probably should, with the regulations or the demands from specific supermarket chains, which will be something Michelle will be talking about today as well. So there's a broad range of chemical analysis that we provide. Okay, that's a brief introduction. Michelle Whitmer will be taking you from here into all the details of residues of pesticides. Again, a small reminder, if you do have questions yourself, specific questions, please put them on an email and send them directly to Michelle, and he'll be coming back to you as quick as possible. So from that, I would like to give the floor to Michelle.
Well, Jurgen, thank you very much for the introduction, and also for me, good afternoon or good morning for the people in Peru or other countries in South America. About the program, I will introduce myself. My name is Michelle Whitmer. I'm product manager for food control, and normally for the fruit and vegetables and the food processed food industry. I'm working still now for 9 years for food control, and yeah, it's a really nice job to help people with the problems they have, and also from a technical background, I like to give advice to the clients. Well, most part of our test of food control are the residue test. Well, and that's the protocol for today. So we have the legal provisions for pesticides, residues, about the MRL and ROD, and also the laboratory tour that I will show you later. Sampling, method of analyze of the LG MSMS and GC MSMS. Some incidents in the past, also reports. It's very important because how do you have to read them? What is the information the laboratory has sent to you? And after that, also an overview of results, what to do, and yeah, maybe that will be a question from me to you. How can we that yeah, to do in the future? And questions, okay, that's what already Johan mentioned. Please send an email, and then we have the time also to give you a good answer. We're starting with the legal provisions of for pesticides residues. I think it's maybe the first part of the presentation is a little bit of boring, but hopefully the level will increase later with the more nice subjects. But the legal is really, the law is really important because that is where we started, and even nowadays we have to do with it. We discuss about the Codex Alimentarius worldwide, the law in the European Union, the national law here in Holland, and not the law, but also really important are the retail specs. But the retail specs I will discuss later. The Codex Alimentarius, well, after the Second World War in Europe, increasing trade between countries because it was really important. And in 1962, the United Nations established an organization on the responsibility of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations and the World Health Organization, and that was the Codex Alimentarius. So there was a commission and participation of 187 countries and one organization, European Union. And they decide to develop international standards for food products with the aim of protection of international public health and promoting fairness of trade in food products. You can see the link to the website. It's really interesting to watch. Most of the test, the residue test from the Codex Alimentarius are really really common. A lot of different methods are included, and that means that if a client asks for this kind of type of residue analysis, it's big money. Say even about €1,000 you have to pay for all these tests. The Codex Committee on Residues of Pesticides had 6 goals. You can read them here. It's really important to the maximum limits for pesticides residues in specific food items or in other parts of groups of food. Maximum limits for pesticide residues in certain animal feeding stuffs, because that's also important, not only for the people, but also for animals, because that is the first part of the chain. Also to prepare priority list of pesticides for evaluation by the joint of the feed, that's the Food and Agriculture Organization and the World Health Organization meeting on pesticide residues. To consider methods of sampling and analysis for the determination of pesticide residues in food and feed, and to consider also other methods in relation to the safety of food and feed containing pesticide residues. And the last one is to establish maximum limits for environmental and industrial contaminants showing chemical or other similarity to pesticides in specific food items or group of foods. A lot of boring information, but the legal framework for plant protection products is the regulation 1107 concerning the placing of plant protection products on the products, and also the directive 2009 establishing a framework for the sustainability use of pesticides. And the last one is really the most well-known, the 396, the setting of maximum residue levels of pesticides in or on food and feed of plant and animal origin. In the European legislation, you have division of tasks and responsibilities of the MRLs, risk assessment by the European Food Safety Authority, EFSA, the setting of the MRLs based on the EFSA opinion, European Commission, and enforcement and control national authorities, just like the Dutch authorities of food safety, but also the Feed Safety Assurance and the Federal Agency for the Safety of the Food Chain. What I already mentioned, 396 is really important. So the setting of MRLs for pesticides requires a lengthy technical examination, includes an assessment of the potential risk to the consumer. And how are the MRLs set? Well, for MRL file, well, we have residues of pesticides, we have consumption of food, and we also have toxicological data. Well, this information is sent to the EFSA, and they make an evaluation and give an advice to the EU Commission, and that means that they make then the MRL based on good agriculture practice and consumer health protection. What's also important is the EU legislation on authorization of plant protection. And that means that use of pesticides in the same region based on similar ecological and agriculture conditions, just like a mutual recognition system. And that means that we have Europe is divided in 3 parts, north, center, and south. And that means that if someone in Spain has legislation for plant protection, that also can be asked in France and Portugal in an easy way, because most of the times, the products, the plants are the same in these types of areas. The content of a national plan is what we also do by the national authorities here. Products to be sampled, just domestic, also from the European Union and also from other countries outside of Europe. And that means that they have to make a decision of the number of samples to be taken, which pesticides to be analyzed, and criteria applied in drawing up the program, such as consumption of the products as a share of the national diet, or the community control program and the results of previous control programs. If there is some recalls happen, then okay, you can change the programs and make sure that you have a good indication of what are the risks in the chain. Well, national law, that's the NVWA, is here the Dutch authorities of food safety. Well, they have created a meldwijzer, that is a report sign, and what they do is unsafe food reporting guide. So you can take care of the website of the NVWA, or you can call them. They also have an animal feed reporting guide, so you can also check that on the website. And for organic products, we have Skull, and also reporting guide Skull for organic products. You can see that on the website. And with the meldwijzer, you can see in which steps you can follow, and you can see, do you have to inform the national authorities about problems of your products based on the residues of pesticides. If you don't know what to do, please use this guide in Holland. Please use it, because it will be very easy for you to check your product. Well, the maximum residue level and acute reference doses. That is what you most will see on the reports. The MRL is based on the concentration of pesticides which can be used for a long period without a health risk. And the RFD, acute reference doses, is based on the concentration of pesticides which can be a direct health risk. That's really clear, but it means also that residues higher than MRL does not pose a direct risk to the consumer, and residue lower than MRL does not directly mean no risk to the consumer. The risk can be determined on the basis of the RFD percentage. The MRLs are harmonized for all European countries, and the RFD depends on the country in question. That is European harmonization. I will inform you later about that. Because the RFD value depends on the following parts: the chemical property of the active substances, the pesticide, just like carbendazim or imazalil, and this has been determined in studies required with, among other things, data on biochemical, pharmacological, toxicological, and metabolite properties of the active substance in the pesticide. Also, what we need is the NOEL, so the no observed adverse level, effect level, the highest concentration used in an experimental animal with no discernible harmful effect. So that means they have tests done on rats, and only when on a certain concentration the rat or the mouse will go die or will be ill, then you know that the level is necessary for the NOEL. The acute toxicity calculation is carried out in accordance with the guidelines in SONCO 3010. On the moment, we have two models for the RFD, the NESTI and the PRIMO. Well, and also you see a little calculation of the RFD percentage, that is with venture portion times the concentration of the pesticides in the product times the variability factor and divided by the body weight, and that total will also divided by the RFD value, and that will give you the RFD percentage. What's the acute reference doses and toxicity? Well, the value is classified into different groups by the World Health Organization, and how lower the value, the more toxic the product is. And here, for example, you can see different classification, 1A, 1B, 2, and you also see 2 to 1B. That means for chlorpyrifos, because that's more toxic than in the past by all the tests they have done, and that means that also the qualification is high. Yeah, and sometimes some active components are not really dangerous, and then you don't have also RFD value. The venture portion in Primo 3.1 is a collecting of information about consumption within the European Union. For each country, there are national enquêtes, and that means that during 1 year, for example, the Dutch authorities ask to a family to describe all the things they eat the whole day, weekly in and weekly out for the whole year, and that means also for adults, for children, everything what they eat will be noticed. And that gives for all these different countries a venture portion, and based on that, after analyzing at the laboratories, you can calculate the RFD percentage, and that hopefully you can eat healthy all these products. The Primo 3.1 is a really a new counting system, and you can download the Excel file from the website, and that gives you more information about all these different information of large portion expressed as gram per kilogram per body weight, but also what's the MRL, all these types from what you mean for a child, for an infant, for a toddler, for all the different types of fruit and vegetables. That's really yeah, a lot of work, but with this Excel file, it helps you to calculate. If you want to calculate it by yourself, because normally the laboratories will do that for you, because that is automatically in the system. And that means nowadays the Primo model is based on the risk for one country where it is yeah, the venture portion is most of the time the highest. That means that you have for different countries another value, but for the Primo they will take the value which is the highest level. Also, we have the variability factor, and it means that is the variation of the pesticide residues on individual units, the so-called unit-to-unit variation. That means that if you have pieces weight less than 25 grams, the factor is 1. But because that means you have a lot of different pieces of the product. But for example, if you have pieces weight is more than 250 grams, yeah, then you have another factor just in this way, 5. Because if you have really melons, and normally you ask for 1 kilogram of product for analyzing, yeah, it's not enough. So that means that you need enough of pieces to do the test at the laboratory. And this variability factor is also taken in the calculation for the Primo model. There's also a processing factor. Processing factors are published by the Dutch authorities for the environment, the RIVM, but also in other countries they are published. And also another processing factor that is the residue in processed product divided by the residue in agriculture raw products. So necessary to calculate the RD. For example, if you have oranges, you can have raw oranges, you can have the juice, but also the oil for some products. In apple, you can have the raw apple, apple juice, apple puree, dried apples, and also from other products, you can see there are different types of products, and yeah, you have to take care to calculate MRL and RD with these processing factors. If you don't know them, you can't calculate these values. Well, we go to the laboratory tour. Normally, when we have a course at Groene Control or a visit of clients, it doesn't mean we like to show our laboratory. But in this case, with this webinar, it's not so possible to give you a show. But we have tried to also to make a little overview of our laboratory. So with the help of my colleague Martin van der Maro, we have made some pictures, and hopefully you have a good, good information about our possibilities. No, laboratory tour, you only see the tomatoes, yes, and that is what we need. In Holland, we have a lot of warehouses with fresh and healthy tomatoes. So you see, these types of tomatoes are really ready for to pick up, and that's what they do. So that can mean that one of our colleagues will go to the grower and will take the samples, or otherwise the grower itself can take the samples, and then they call Groene Control and they say, please pick them up. Well, one of our colleagues will take the samples and bring them to the laboratory, and after that each sample gets a number, a special number based on the year, month, day, and also a weekly number, and then it will go to the pre-treatment, the grinding, and that means that all the samples we receive will be grind one for one, and after each step you have to clean really the equipment, and if it's grind well, then we have some samples which are going to the laboratory for further detection, and also we keep some pieces of some part of this juice also in the freezer for a long period. If you have a problem with a client, with a report, we also have some product kept in the freezer. Well, this is an overview of our GC MSMS laboratory, and that is also the place where the pre-treatment of the samples started. That means by waving the sample, and after that, then solution will be added, and then the solution will, just in the way you see it here, will be mixed so that the residues of the pesticides will go from the product to the solution, and after that, after centrifugation, then there will be an extra selection of the organic part. I will show you later, and this part will be used to do the test. And you see two bottles, one for the LG and one for the LC MSMS method. When the small bottles are finished, well, then they can be started for the LG and the LC method, and each run will take about 15 or 20 minutes. So even at the end of the day, most of the machines are started, and during the night also they can analyze the different the screening or other additional methods for the pesticides. Another view of the laboratory. See a lot of equipment. It's amazing because it's really expensive equipment, and it's really yeah. Normally you can see it in that is really with high speed. Sometimes the small bottles are in the machine. This is part of the LC MSMS. There's another laboratory that's based on the room temperature, and also we have a lot of equipment to do the test. In our screening, we have more than 750 pesticides, but in the LG we can analyze 400 pesticides. In GC MSMS we can analyze 400, but that means there's an overview of some pesticides are present in both methods. So that's also a double check. Well, after the test is done, the lab technician will take care of the results and check if everything is okay, because sometimes you have, based on the matrix, another peak, but instead what you accept for each pesticide. So then you have to check for the second or sometimes for the third time if it's okay or not okay. Is it just a good pesticide and also the good concentration? So the pesticide itself will be tested by the time when it arrives in the machine, in the equipment, and also the surface of the peak. That is something about the concentration of the pesticide. And at least and not at least, but at last, our manager, Hassan Abalabi, he checks everything, and if he thinks it's okay, he will validate and will send the reports to our clients. Yeah, and finally, hopefully, the client is happy and he can sell his fresh and safe fruit, also on the market, but also in the retail. Well, sampling, because that is really important for us. I will explain to you. As you see on the picture, someone in well, say in the southeast of Asia, with on the rice fields, he is spraying some pesticides, but otherwise his wife is calling and said, "Hey, what's the time we have dinner tonight?" Well, that means that he's not walking anymore, and he stays at one place. That means that in the middle of the field, we have some extra pesticides sprayed, and then normally in the opposite of the other part of the field. Well, how do we have to take a sample? Well, if you make some units about the whole field, you can take what we call the W method. And if you see in this proposal, we have 120 units, 26 on market, red or yellow. Well, yellow is a high concentration, but it's lower than MRL. And red is a high concentration, higher than MRL. Well, in this case, you see we have 3 points without higher concentrations, and we have 1 place in yellow and 1 place in red. So in this case, it will be the average of the sample must be okay. Otherwise, also if you have units just like in storage, you can also do the log of the total of each packing unit. Well, the methods of analyzing pesticides. Well, that is really important. And we have a result. But first, which method. Yeah, and for us, we I want to give the benefits to our residue lab, to my colleagues, because they do every day really good work. If you compare with football, it's every day Champions League. It's really amazing what you have to do with extra test validation. It's really nice to work with them. Otherwise, I can't sell not a good quality of our test if my colleagues make a lot of mistakes. So benefit to them. The extraction method. Well, yes, we have seen sampling by the client or by the laboratory or external. Well, the sample is grinded. We have some homologation. We have extraction, sample pretreatment. Sometimes you have some extra purification, cleanup. That means by nuts or meat, you have maybe some more fat or other issues that makes it more difficult to make a good extraction. And then you have a qualitative and quantitative determination at the laboratory. And after that, you have a reporting and interpretation. Well, the method is always a multi or a single residue test, just like ethaform or solveclat. And most of the times, the equipment is the LC MSMS and GC MSMS. Well, here you see proposal of when the sample is after the centrifuge, you see different parts of the product. Yeah, it's really homogenized, but you see in the upper side is the organic extract. Then you see some product or some other matrix, and below is the water phase. From the upper side, the lab technician takes a sample and takes care to do the further test for the report. For the chromatography, we have that is a separation technique and separation of complex matrices. So we have the liquid chromatography and the gas chromatography already mentioned, in combination with the mass spectrophotometer. And that is really it's based on the movement of a charged particle or ion in an electric or magnetic field. And combination of the LC and the MS, as well as even tandem mass, that is really the best method to identify all these different pesticides. You see also on how it works. There's a really an old more based on the HPLC method, but in principle it's the same now with the new equipment. It's really expensive equipment. Normally for LG we pay about 200,000, 250,000 euro for each machine. Yeah, that's a lot of money. And even before we can use one of these equipment, we have to validate more than 6 months to be sure that the new equipment has the same results as the other ones we already used before. Well, then the report. If you receive a report, what is really important? Well, it was not possible to show you a report of the client. But in this way, where Funab control at the top of the report, there's normally where you can find the name of the client. We can see also each report has a report number and also a special monster code. And after that, you can see also methods which are used, especially for this sample. The product is a pepper, and you see that we have found 8 components, 7 by the LC MSMS and 1 by the GC MSMS. In this case, the grower has really a big problem because you see that the MRL is really too high. In percentage is 16,000. Yeah, not possible to sell this product, but it's not really a nice proposal to show you, which is really necessary also to show. Always, you can always see in the background which version of our screen we have analyzed, because sometimes it's changed, and it means that most of the times there are additional pesticides on the list, but not always. And really at the bottom of the report you will find or not a logo of the RVA, that's the National Authorities of Accreditation, and also a sign of our director. That means that it's an official report which can be used. Well, then we have risk management and control. We will discuss the recall specs, some incidents, the gradation of pesticides, the entire chains, conclusion and advice. Well, we have just a proposal of the recall specs. I'm not sure if this is really the current information, but otherwise you can see that we can give you the report on the report for about 20 retailers, the different results, and it's based. Some retailers have really high specs. That means that more about 30% of the MRL. Some have 50% of the MRL. And also they have some additional things like the black list amount or maximum amount of pesticides in the product. For me, it's really difficult because the retailers can ask to the growers and producers, okay, you don't have to use so many pesticides, but even in this time, is it possible in the future with the current weather conditions and environment to have this high quality of specs, and also that the product will be okay and can be sold in all the countries all over the world. Well, if you talk about some incidents, well, then we talk about isofenfos, methyl. That was for some years ago in Spain. Someone was so clever to add a methyl group to isofenfos, and that means that the molecule was different and was not analyzed anymore by the different laboratories. Well, in this way, it was illegal. Someone, maybe publicly mention it, and so someone knows it, and then they have taken action, and all these peppers which are sprayed with isofenfos methyl, they can't be sold that time. Also, chlormecrot in grapes in India, it was legal in India, so they can use it, but it's in Europe is forbidden. That means that the grapes from India couldn't sold here in Europe. Also in waxes, waxes are used on the outside of the product. It can be mango or also avocado. For example, carnival wax was forbidden and couldn't be used, and yes, when it was found on the outside of the product, then the producer has a problem. In the meantime, I have understood that carnival wax can be used now, so that means that in some countries just take care of that. And also we have some problems with the solvents, just like morpholine, TA and DA, because solvents are used to dissolve the waxes, and these are really illegal. Ethanolamine is a compound that is really toxic, so that is really dangerous for consumer. But also quaternary ammonium compounds are used And that's also forbidden because these are really used on equipment and not it's not allowed to use it on product. And also perchlorate and chlorate is as a problem about they have with high concentration. It can give you thyroid problems in Dutch schildklier. So it is not really nice, and that's for that reason the EFSA had really a low or high MRL for these components. Degradation of pesticides. Well, I show you two figures. The first one is about use of two pesticides in apples, just on the golden delicious variety, and you see that the concentration of the different pesticides decrease in the number of time. You see that in the last one is about 35 days after treatment. It is gone. You can't analyze it anymore. And in the second figure, you see some tests with on tomatoes, and that is really interesting because you see the residue in percentage of MRL, and by the Telder and the active pesticide is fenhexamide. You see that at the start of the project on the 2nd of July, that the percentage was about 100. So that is not good, or it's just on the limit. But to be safer, just also for retail specs, you need more than 3 weeks that you can have on the level of 30%. You have to wait. The other products which are used, the Calypso, the Runner, and the Oberon, they are already at the start of the test in lower concentrations, so it's not really a problem in this way. What is degradation? It's half-lifetime. The information of the degradation of the product is really scarce because it depends on different factors. But also, normally, degradation in milieu of plant protection product in authorization dossier is not always completely ended. It's characterized by half-time. That means that after one frequency, we have only 50% of the residue, and it means by the second frequency that 50% of 50 is 25%. So in the beginning, it's really quick by degradation, but after some time, it takes more time that the concentration will go zero. Degradation rate, depending on environmental factors, is really important. The temperature, the light, humidity, the rain, but it can also be the rinsing inside. And it's really important, cultivation versus post-harvest, because during cultivation, we have a normal half-lifetime. By post-harvest, then half-lifetime will be different. It takes more time, even if it is can be decreasing. For example, in Holland we used DDT, but not for the last 50 years. But even now we analyze this pesticide, which is really toxic, because the whole lifetime is so long that even now we find parts of this pesticide. Well, points of attention in the entire chain. Well, we have some different stages for the cultivation, during the cultivation, the harvest, post-harvest, storage of the product, transport of the product, and packing. And that's really difficult because for the grower, when he's ready with his product, he thinks, okay, my product is okay, it can be sold. But that's the problem, even because during also by the post-harvest storage, people can use pesticides. So that is not so easy that when your product is finished, really after packing, that it's really complete and it fulfill all the specs for residues. For example, during the packing, I see you have a lot of experience with organic and conventional products. When the oranges or the lemons are packed, yeah, and they will transport on the same band. Yeah, that is really a problem because in the rocks of the oranges or lemons for conventional products, you have a lot of post-harvest residues. Well, and if you have conventional products, you don't want these types of pesticides or no pesticides at all. And this is really a problem that you have a perfect organic product and after packing, you have the problem. So that is really important. Take care of that. Well, we have also some points of attention in the entire chain. And before cultivation, for example, disinfection by methyl bromide in the soil, but also the use of 2-methyl-4-chlor acetic acid, and for the wheat, just in the citrus. And so for all these products, during all these stages of the chain, yeah, you have a lot of working agents to decrease the pesticide, also to increase the quality of the product. So that is really important, and this, yeah, you have to check that, and that's the best to do that in a spray list. If you can prepare a spray list with the different types of phases, which action you will have, what is the treatment and what is the active component, because then you can see what is used and what is added. And if you have then the final report of your product and you see other components, other pesticides, then you can ask when have they contact your product, and that's to check. And it is really, I think that is really important for the producer to see what they can use and also in which concentration. This is special. So the conclusion is, please make a treatment plan. These have the following advantages: reduction of overruns, and because no one wants to have high MRL of higher than MRL concentration of pesticides, and you don't transport a product from South America to Europe, and then you have to say it's damaged, you can't use it. But also better communication between business partners. And the grower receives good information about the requirements of the country, because not every grower outside of Europe knows all the law and requirements we all have here. Also, a correctly and timely information about treatments by growers, so a better relation, and maybe by a more effective control, maybe with some higher cost of testing, but otherwise a good product and also a better product which you can sell. And yeah, that's my message. Please take care of that. If you can help you in this way, we like to do it. But even in this time, it's really we have to take care of our earth, our conditions, our products, so that we can eat every day safe and healthy food. So for each grower or distributor, make a selection of products with the MRL problem. What types of fruit or vegetable are pouring. Make the top 5 of products with the biggest products, just like MRL, and discuss internally with the grower and also other parties. Discuss the whole chain, but especially the spray list with the grower. Remove the pesticides with a low MRL, 0.01 ppm, and try to find better ones instead of that. Make a project with the grower for next season, so that you know before what to do. Because now we mentioned that most of the producers sent us a batch to analyze, and then they say, okay, it's okay or not okay. Now you have to work before that. So make a project with this grower, and hopefully you will have a better, healthy product without too much pesticides. That's the end of the story for this presentation. Hopefully you enjoyed. Please let me know. And Jelga will continue with the wrap, the finishing of this presentation. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias. Adios.
Ah. Ja. Yeah.
Yeah.
Michelle, thank you very much. I think it has been a very extensive first introduction to everything related to pesticide analysis, residues, and how you can use that in practice. I'm not going to summarize the whole presentation. That will probably take another hour. What I would like to mention is that there is also for Dutch people a masterclass that we're giving in Holland, where you will be taken in even much more detail through everything related to pesticide analysis. For those of you interested, I think we have the next one coming up in May, and you can see that on the website that we have. Just to emphasize again, if you have questions following this presentation, we're happy to help. Please send your questions directly to Michelle Wittmann. More information about residue analysis or any of the other analysis that we do in our laboratories, please visit www.agrocontrol.nl. You'll find a lot of information there, and also additional contact details if you're looking for more specific information. Last but not least, we're giving more of these mini symposia. We have another one coming up next week about strawberries. Feel free to sign up to that one. We have one coming up on melons later this year, another one on grapes and mangoes. So if you'd like to go more into detail and learn more about specific quality issues in specific product areas, please stay tuned to the channels that we have, and feel free to sign up if you think some of these mini symposia might be interesting. Now, I would like to ask you for a small favor at the end. As soon as I'm signing off today, you'll see a small evaluation sheet that you can fill in directly online. And we would greatly appreciate that. We would love to hear from you what you think about this mini symposia, and also some of your suggestions, perhaps, about some future subjects that you might find interesting. It only takes a minute, but we would really appreciate your feedback. So thank you very much for attending. Have a great day, and please spend a few seconds filling in our evaluation sheet. Thank you very much.